What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back. More C4, and I figured we'd throw in a little bit of a preview for tomorrow's NFC Championship game where the Philadelphia Eagles, the 1 seed, the best team in the NFL, host Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers in a game where I'm still shocked at the amount of people that think the 49ers are better than... Like, the last time I can relate to a position like this was 2017. In 2017, that was the dog mask. Philly's the underdog in every matchup. Pressure was non-existent because no one was expecting us to win really at any of those games. Maybe Atlanta, the first game of that run, but every other game from there on, it was like, all right, man, when are the Eagles going to lose? I mean, that was a magical run. There's no other way to describe it. That was magical. This year, I'm high-assing it, man. I think Philly is going to kick the shit out of the 49ers. I don't think it's going to be a particularly close game. I don't think it's going to be as one-sided as the Eagles beating the Giants, but I don't know, man. And it's not that I don't respect... I'm a fan. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think. But it's not that I don't respect the 49ers, right? Like, Kyle Shanahan is my coach of the year. You know, you look at the coach of the year candidates, right? You get Nick Sirianni there, and I think Nick Sirianni, in terms of projected wins and what he actually got, was the highest out of all the coach of the year candidates. But I do think there was a level of, like, after all the moves Philly made, getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, getting Hassan Reddick, trading for A.J. Brown, getting James Bradbury, I think like all those kind of free agency moves in the offseason, expectations were pretty high for the Eagles this year. I think, and you got Brian Daboll, who got, only 2 games over his expected win total. People are trying... It's not Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll absolutely isn't coach of the year. And I say that as someone that, he's Canadian. I always just default to enjoying and liking and supporting Canadians in the NFL. But my coach of the year candidate is Kyle Shanahan. The fact that he also had a very good team, like Nick Sirianni, which for some reason it feels like media is using the talent of Eagles roster against Sirianni, but not really using that against Kyle Shanahan for the most part. But the fact that he got to the NFC Championship game with a revolving door at quarterback, definitely, in my opinion, is the most impressive feat that has happened in the NFL this year. So I respect them. They're a good team. They're well coached. D'Amico Ryans is a monster of a defensive coordinator, and I can't wait for him to go off and get a head coaching job somewhere. It looks like it might be Houston, and if it is, I'm going to like Houston a lot more next year. One of my favorite players back in the day, my first ever Eagles game, was Eagles-Dallas. I sat in the nosebleeds, which was a mistake, and it was a Chip Kelly year. It was the only game all year that no touchdowns were scored for the Philadelphia Eagles. There was an injury at quarterback. Nick Foles got hurt. Who the fuck was it? Matt Barkley came in through 4 picks. The only thing good that happened in the game was D'Amico Ryans got an interception on Tony Romo, which was cool. That was the only cool thing. I'll always remember that. That'll always be like one of my ingrained memories in my head. So shout out to D'Amico Ryans. He runs a hell of a defense there in San Francisco, and it's not going to be an easy game for Philly. That doesn't mean I still don't think it's going to be particularly close. So the narrative is that these are the 2 best teams in the NFL. At least the 2 best teams in terms of rosters, at least in the NFC, right? Which is fair. I think that's completely valid. But I don't think if you compare these 2 rosters that it's really that close who the better team is. So, I'm going to use the power of Madden Ultimate Team just to show the lineups here and kind of push come to shove, who's the advantage, who has the stronger team. And I'm going to show you guys why I don't visually think it's particularly close as it relates to these 2 squads. And then after that, we'll kind of go into my predictions for this game. So let's start here. We'll start with special teams. You got to go all 3 phases. I'll give the advantage to the Niners here. Philly special teams has got better down the stretch. It was very bad to kind of start out the year, but I'll give, Ray River Cloud's probably a little bit better than anything we have as a returner. Wisnowski's better than our back, the punter we just signed out, the street Brett Kern, who actually has not been that great. Kicker's probably a push. Jake Elliott and Robbie Gould both are very solid kickers, but I would, if I had to give an advantage, I'd go Jake Elliott just because he has the big game experience advantage over Robbie Gould. He's kicked in championship games. He's made big kicks in Super Bowls. But ultimately, kicker's probably a push. But I will give Jake Elliott the slight nod. But overall, sure, if we're evaluating all 3 phases of football, I would give the advantage to the 49ers, even though it's not like the 49ers have an incredible special teams unit. But we're going to be evaluating everything here. Looking at the defense, this is kind of, God, Ultimate Team, what's going on with the bright colored cards? But our defense here is kind of, laid out as such. Let's kind of go through it, man, and just, that is the strength, really, of the San Francisco 49ers. They have a good run game on the offensive side of the ball, and it's their defense. But when you really look at it, Philly has more talent on the defensive side of the ball. And yes, while the 49ers have the number 1 defense in the NFL, Philly also got, 70 sacks this year, which is 3rd most all time, We have absolute ball hawks. We have all pro type players on our defense as well. It just feels like in this discussion, while we admit that the 49ers defense, number one defense in the NFL, rightfully so, they've played incredibly well, and they're incredibly well coached. I'd give the advantage immediately, defensive coordinator, to DeMeco Ryans in this matchup. It just feels like people are completely throwing what the Philadelphia Eagles did this year out the window. I think the only advantage the Niners have clearly as it relates to the defense is their linebackers. And even then, we still have some dogs. Kaiser White's only here because, just how the lineup worked here. But both these run a 4-3. So the three linebackers that you would take out of these two teams, I'd go Fred Warner at 1, TJ Edwards at 2, Dre Greenlaw at 3. And according to the nerds at PFF, Fred Warner, second team, TJ Edwards, first team. That's not, I don't think there's a better linebacker than Fred Warner's. Maybe people in his area code. Well, at least that's what to show you how well TJ Edwards has played this year. Because I know a bunch of Niner fans are like, who the hell is TJ Edwards? The nerds respect his game. If the nerds respect it, he's been great for us. But overall, that's a 2-1. You can do the math. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are a better duo for the linebacking core than TJ Edwards and Kaiser White is. But it's kind of close. But we'll just give it the advantage right now. Linebackers will go to the 49ers. Looking at the safeties, I'll go Hufanga. Pretty surprising that he made All-Pro, to be honest with you. I think he's a good player, though. Very fun player. And then you got to go Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on the other side. A little bit of a push as it relates to the safeties. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with his 6 interceptions, tied for first in the NFL, and he missed how many games? 5 games? 6 games? So, you could just, if you project, if he didn't miss the time, he would be the league leader in interceptions. So I think safety is a push, 2 really good safeties. But going into the secondary, absolutely not a push. The advantage is overwhelmingly in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. If you throw in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and you're kind of looking at the corners, it's easily big play Slay and James Bradbury are the 2 outside corners. Slay has cooled off a little bit down the stretch. James Bradbury, second team All-Pro. I think Charvarius Ward here is very solid for the 49ers, but he's not better than Darius Slay. He's not better than James Bradbury. And then for slot, for the Niners, they kind of have like a safety hybrid in Jimmy Ward. It's Avonte Maddox. Avonte Maddox is, slight advantage there in the slot position. But overall, are you going Hufanga, Charvarius Ward, and Jimmy Ward? Or are you going Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, and Avonte Maddox? Philly has more depth in the secondary. We have less weaknesses, less guys that you were going to pick on in the secondary. So secondary advantage goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And then it comes down to the defensive line. And it's very star built if you're going Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa likely is going to be Defensive Player of the Year. He'd be my vote for Defensive Player of the Year. In terms of singular star power, you have Nick Bosa. That is the only thing the 49ers have in terms of advantage on the defensive line over the Philadelphia Eagles. Javon Hargrave, Hassan Riddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Aid. We'll throw Eric Armstead in there, probably D-tackle too this season. But the depth and the revolving door of pass rushers and the revolving door of looks Philadelphia can offer on the defensive side, trying to make Brock Purdy's life a living hell, is a lot more, tools in our toolbox than the 49ers. The 49ers are like, stop Nick Bosa. And we got Lane Johnson back. It's not 100% Lane Johnson, but I think that's going to be a hell of a matchup. That's going to be a big-time, key-to-victory type matchup. Nick Bosa, really against ender tackles. If they move him around a little bit, going up against Lane, going up against Jordan Mailata, I think if you can really stop Nick Bosa, you're going to be able to. And honestly, in this matchup, I think Philadelphia plays Nick Bosa like they played Micah Parsons. You let him be a free runner, honestly. You just trust that Nick Bosa, who by all accounts is not a smart person, right? He likes to make America great again. And I'm Canadian. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. But he does seem like kind of a dumb person, right? You just let Jalen Hurts manipulate him. Literally let him run at us. If he stays, we're going to, throw a slant. If he goes and brings pressure, switch to a run at him, target him, pick on him. Literally just every single snap, watch what Nick Bosa is doing and do the opposite. That's exactly what we did to really quiet Micah Parsons, who's unstoppable. I feel like that's going to be something that we got to watch. But overall, man, secondary advantage going to Philly, defensive line advantage going to Philly, and we'll give the linebackers to the San Francisco 49ers. So, defense, Eagles. Going to the offensive side of the ball. Again, I don't think it's particularly close. This is kind of how we built it up here. Starting on the offensive line. We'll go Trent Williams at left tackle, but Jordan Mailata is still a top 5 left tackle. If you're going Trent Williams, it's very much in the discussion that he is the best left tackle in the NFL. He'd be my number 1 tackle. But Jordan Mailata is probably the 4th or 5th best tackle in the NFL, so they drop off the gap. It's not like you're doing this matchup. It's like, well, maybe that's an advantage for the 49ers. They're going to be able to attack Jordan Mailata. He's still top 5. Rest of the offensive line, it's not even close. The 49ers, it's almost incredible what they've been able to get out of their offensive line. Very good schematics. But the talent overwhelmingly goes in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's Pro Bowl. I'm not going to say Pro Bowl means that player's good or not, but Landon Dickerson, Pro Bowler. Jason Kelsey might be the best center in the NFL. Isaac Seumalo making the Pro Bowl, PFF darling. And Lane Johnson, much like Trent Williams, is the best left tackle. I think the best right tackle in the NFL is Lane Johnson. Now, he's not 100%, but overall, offensive line, big time advantage in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. And if we're going to continue where, like, well, Trent Williams might be the best in his position, but Philly's not too far off, then you got to kind of use that for tight end. I'm not in any way ever going to say that Dallas Goedert is a better tight end than George Kittle. George Kittle is an advantage. He's an absolute game changer for the San Francisco 49ers. But it's like the drop-off between the two. I think Dallas Goedert's still top 5. Who else you got? You're going to go Kelsey and Kittle as your top 2 tight ends, right? And then I think the next grouping, you could put Goddard at 3. It wouldn't be ridiculous to have Dallas Goedert as the 3rd best tight end in the NFL. You got Mark Andrews. You got, that's probably it, at least in terms of consensus. Then you got kind of some outlier type tight ends, right? Waller when he's healthy, Kyle Pitts in terms of skill set. I'm probably blanking on 1 or 2 guys here, but the drop-off here, if you're comparing tight ends, what George Kittle can do in a game and take it over, you can get that from Dallas Goedert. George Kittle had that ridiculous one-handed catch in the game last week. Dallas Goedert had a ridiculous one-handed catch that went for a touchdown last week. So the gap in something that even the Niners, you have to admit, have an advantage is not that big. But the gap between where Philadelphia has an advantage and the San Francisco 49ers is massive in a lot of different positions here. Looking at the skill positions, this is kind of how it shaped up. We have Juszczyk at fullback. I mean, Philly doesn't even utilize the fullback, but we'll give them that. Skill position, running back room, we'll go Christian McCaffrey is the best running back. Maybe McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. Both teams really do implore a running back by committee approach. You would take CMC and Elijah Mitchell over Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell or Boston Scott. But, this talking point, the more talented backfield, will go to San Francisco. The more talented run game, I think you have to go with Philadelphia because of what Jalen Hurts can do as a quarterback. He offers that much more dynamic play and ability in the run game versus Brock Purdy. The offensive line shifts in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles for the run game. So, you know what I'm saying? The better run game is Philadelphia. How much of a positive are you going to say, well, the Niners have a more talented backfield, but the Eagles have, they're not going to be able to still run it because Philadelphia's defense is going to make it difficult to run it. They're going to have to get creative with their run calls. They're not going to be able to just run straight at the Eagles defense because ever since we signed Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, the run defense has went from an issue, a potential problem area for the Philadelphia Eagles to like our run defense is top 10 in the NFL since we made those signings. It's been very good. So I'll give the credit. The star power might go to the 49ers here, but overall the run game, I think it's Philly, right? And then you go to the receivers. I'm taking A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith every day of the week. Debo is a starter, but Debo is kind of like a gadget-type player. Might be more beneficial in the slot. I think in terms of outside, I take Devontae Smith over Debo on the outside every day of the week. Brandon Ayuk had 1,000 yards this year, but you're not playing Brandon Ayuk or Debo Samuel over A.J. Brown or Devontae on the outside. So overall advantage for receivers, I think you're going to Philadelphia. And even if you just want to take the one guy, right? The one guy. It's Debo versus A.J. Brown. Those are the wide receiver ones on the respective team. You're going A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, the last time he played against the San Francisco 49ers, he had 10 catches, 145 yards. It's a team that he loves to feast against. I'm going in Philadelphia. It's not a massive difference, though, but I do think it's considerable enough to say, it's unanimous that Philly has the better wide receiver room than the 49ers. And then the biggest spot, the most important spot is quarterback. It's not even remotely close. I think Brock Purdy is a very... it's not fair. It's not fun to even talk shit about Brock Purdy because what he's doing is ridiculous for being Mr. Irrelevant in the draft to be able to operate that offense. But, he's operating the offense. Jalen Hurts... What people say would make Jalen Hurts is the system, right? Brock Purdy is a system quarterback. Brock Purdy is operating Kyle Shanahan's system to a T. He doesn't throw a lot of difficult throws. It's play action passes. It's screen passes. That's all he does. Jalen Hurts is improved, especially when Gardner Minshew is in, that he is the system. He is not a system quarterback. And it's just that, it's overwhelmingly in favor of Jalen Hurts at the quarterback spot. And literally, we just kind of went through it. I don't see any real area from that. Am I wrong? Was there anything you didn't put Spencer Burford in over Sam? For the Philly, it's not even close. You're going to give the 49ers, we'll give them left tackle and this is no, they have a superstar left tackle. Well, Philly has a very good tackle. on the offense, we're going left tackle and tight end, and even then, it's kind of close. In terms of, like, I'm not saying that's kind of close in relation to my lot is almost as good as Trent Williams. Dallas Goedert's almost, they might, on a given day, Goddard can be better than Kittle. But in terms of, like, the gap between the Niners player and the Eagles player, it's not that big. But the gap between Jason Kelsey and the Niners center, the gap between Lane Johnson and Mike McGlinchey, the gap between Landon Dickerson and whoever the guard is for the 49ers, Spencer Burford, the gap between A.J. Brown and Brandon Ayuk, the gap between Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy, it's overwhelmingly with the Philadelphia Eagles. On the defensive side, the gap between Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Jimmy Ward, the gap between Darius Slay and Charvarius Ward, the gap between James Bradbury and Demomador Lenore, that's not a Key and Peele sketch, that's a real player. The gap between anybody on the Eagles defensive line and anybody on the 49ers defensive line not named Nick Bosa is clearly in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles, especially with the depth the Eagles have on the defensive line. I could say this till I'm fucking blue in the face. Philly has a much better team than the 49ers, and I don't think this game is going to be particularly close. But we'll put on the doomsday hat here. A little bit of predictions for this matchup. How could the 49ers beat the Philadelphia Eagles? And I think that there's only really been one team that has, on a full-strength Eagles team, when we should have been playing our best football. The loss against the Commanders is like the blueprint for how you beat Philly. And that's exactly the Commanders when they were on offense. Long ass drives. Philly could not get off the field. Third and shorts, conversion. The defense got gassed. Now, from that game, it was a lot of Brian Robinson short runs. And I think the 49ers might be able to mix in some exotic runs that could trick the Philadelphia Eagles. A big thing for the Philadelphia Eagles, you got to tackle well. You have to tackle well, or the Niners are going to eat you alive, especially on the screen passes. Like, that is my number one thing. If I'm Jonathan Gannon, I'm saying we're playing aggressive. We're going to play a lot of press man. We're going to make Brock Purdy have to beat us with his arm. We're not going to let them just throw dink and dunks out the backfield to Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel and let these guys get in space and miss our tackles. We're going to make our tackles, and we're going to play aggressive. But if you're the 49ers and you want to try to emulate what the Commanders did by long, staggering drives, keeping the Eagles' offense off the field, it's going to be a lot tougher because in that Commanders game, we didn't have Linval Joseph, we didn't have Ndamukong Suh, two mercenaries that we hired off the street to come in and improve our run defense, was exactly what they did. We didn't have Jordan Davis in that game, who was outstanding, just 6'6", 350-pound, just run stuffer. So I think it's going to be that much more challenging, but also, if the Commanders, I think the gap between the Commanders' run game and what the 49ers are going to be able to do for a run game is obviously substantial, but that is, if I'm the Niners, like, we got to run the football, we got to get long, sustaining drives, and you got to hope that Jalen Hurts has a stinker. Like, that is the only avenue, I think, scenario-wise, is because Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the football over. Maybe run at the Eagles' corners. Like, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, they don't love tackling, I guess. Like, physicality, Philly has, I would say, it'd be fair to say that Philly has a more finesse defense than they do have a bully defense. I like to think our defensive line's kind of bullies, but on the outside, even in the secondary, more finesse. More guys that like to make plays on the ball in the air versus guys that are going to force a lot of fumbles. Guys are going to lay the lumber. Guys are going to be like your Brian Dawkins type players. So, like, the Niners have to have long, grueling drives. They got to be tougher than Philly, and they got to hope Jalen Hurts sucks. For the Eagles to win this game, I honestly think, and this might be the most disrespectful thing I'll say, kind of in closing of the Niners. Like, I just think if the Philadelphia Eagles play, you take their best game, take Philly's 3 best games, 3 worst games, and take a medium out of that. Like, that level of Philly should win this game. Like, Philly does, I don't think the Eagles have to play their best game to win this. I think the 49ers have to play a perfect game. That's kind of where, that's the best closing thoughts I have, is the Niners have to have perfect circumstances for them to win. Philly, if they just don't hurt themselves, if they don't have a crazy amount of penalties, if they don't have like an A.J. Brown fumble, Miles Sanders fumble, if they just play a standard Eagle game, a median performance from the good and the bad this year, I think they win. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. We might have some Niner fans that stumble upon this video. But, it's not something where I think I'm incredibly confident that Philadelphia, we're going to channel a little bit of minister of defense here, and we're going to just destroy, we're going to make Brock Purdy's life a living hell. Because I also think another thing that's just not getting talked about enough is Brock Purdy hasn't beaten anybody. There have been no good teams that that he's beat. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, maybe. You give them that as their best, and even that game, it wasn't necessarily what Brock Purdy was doing. He wasn't turning the ball over, which is better than what Dak Prescott was doing, but that was a game that their defense won because Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys. But no one is really talking about, you're expecting Brock Purdy, pretty much a UDFA quarterback, to go to, at least in the NFC, I think the most hostile environment. There's some great crowds. Seattle's pretty good. It's probably the other big one, right? But like in terms of hostility, there's nothing more like it in the NFC as it relates to a Philadelphia game. You're going to expect him to go in there and make plays and carry this team because he's going to have to. Brock Purdy's going to have to make plays in this game. Is he going to be able to do that? I mean, we're going to find out, man. We're going to find out. And I like the Niners. I think that what the Niners have done, if Philly wasn't in this game, and this was somehow the Giants, right? Somehow the New York Giants. Like, I'd be pulling for the okay, we'll say it wasn't an NFC team, but this was the Minnesota Vikings. Say the Minnesota Vikings scheduling worked out, and this was a Vikings-Niner NFC. I'd be pulling for the Niners because I like the way they play. I like DeMeco Ryans. I think the story is definitely interesting of Brock Purdy. Why not? Why not pull for the guy? But if you extrapolate it down, man, Brock Purdy he doesn't make mistakes. He's a game manager. He's a system quarterback. He throws a lot of screens. Niners are kind of a boring offense. For a team with that much talent, not super exciting. I think that's because of Brock Purdy. I think if you had a really good quarterback there, you might be able to utilize Deebo Samuel. It's just slants and screen passes. Shout out to, I think from a neutral standpoint, you should be pulling for the Eagles in a neutral standpoint because Philly versus Kansas City, Philly versus Cincinnati is such a better matchup than the 49ers as well in that, because Philly can actually be exciting and run something different than fucking screen passes all the time. But that'll do for me today, guys. Love to hear you guys think about this matchup. We'll be back. I'm kind of hosting a party tomorrow, so I don't think I'll have initial reactions right away. But I will at some point tomorrow, maybe a little bit later on, have my thoughts from the game. Hopefully, it's happy thoughts, celebrating a victory. If not, it's the start of the offseason. I have lots of content coming forward on this channel for the Philadelphia Eagles. I got, stay or go free agency video that I've already kind of started working on. We're going to have draft content, fits, all that different stuff is going to be coming. Off-season is really where this channel is going to get a lot more content. Right now, we're just enjoying the ride here with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'll see you guys back here again tomorrow. If your first time stopping by, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comment section below how you guys feel about this matchup, especially if you are a 49er fan. Love to get a different fan's perspective on it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.